Hack the planet.
What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day, midway through the week. Welcome back to another weekly TCM stream. It is just past 12 on my end, so just past noon. Hope everyone's doing well. For the first comment, we of course have Rubius. Typical. And Jay-Z, or Jay-Z as second. I don't know if you meant your name to be similar to the rapper, but in Canada we call him Jay-Z instead of Jay-Z. Just a little tidbit there. Tyler Ramsby in chat, welcome. I know you usually catch these midway through, so it's nice to see you right at the beginning. Welcome, everyone. Blue room for blue content. Yeah, of course. That is definitely a coincidence. Yeah, we're going to be doing some Sherlocks. Well, we're going to be doing a HackTheBox Sherlock today, which I don't think I've done on stream before. I've done quite a few like Blue Team Labs and Let's Defend rooms, but the Sherlocks are really cool to do. Who is your favorite rapper, and why is it Tyler Ramsby? Did you know I was there that one night when you first created the Try Hack Me rap, like year ago, like past a year ago? I was there, I remember. I think I helped out on one of the rhymes, or at least I had a suggestion on one of the rhymes for that original rap for the advent of cyber. So I witnessed the birth of your cybersecurity rap career, at least. I know you've been doing it for a while, but... Oh, you have a problem with Jay-Z? It's the proper way to say it, dang it. What IEMs? I actually don't know. The brand. No, that is not the brand. I'll have to look it up on Amazon. I just looked up a like very cheap pair, just because I used to have like the wired headphones that go into my interface, but they kept breaking on me. And so IEMs are nice. You can just flip out the wire if you need to, and you can just get sort of that 2-pinned or whatever connector for it. What you prefer, VMware, VirtualBox, or UTM? Well, I've never used UTM. I've always sort of been Windows based, and but I've used both VMware and VirtualBox. I don't really see a difference. I know VirtualBox can have little quirks here and there, especially if you're running Ubuntu, and so it can be pretty annoying from a graphic driver perspective. I've never really had the same issues I've had on VirtualBox on VMware, and now that VMware is free, or at least I think there's like a free version of it. I don't know. I just use both. It is easier to switch between VMs on VMware. They have a nicer interface, in my opinion. Is there malware in the Rubik's Cube? Yeah, that's the secret. Once you turn the correct combination and you get 0 date or something, or ransomware comes out and infects infects any room in any computer in vicinity. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Yeah, we'll just take some. We'll do a short little Q&A, and then we'll jump into the Hack the Box room later on. Um, what I can also do while everyone's sort of funneling in, I want to do a quick announcement, if this works. We have the Active Directory live training with Heath next week. Last week I was pretty much busy the whole week doing the SOC live training. We had a really good cohort there. It was almost sold out, and so that was keeping me pretty busy last week. I don't know how my voice survived, but 4 days of 8 hours of training. Next week is going to be Heath's Active Directory live training class. It's just the 8 hours, the single day, and I've took this class before. I think quite a few of us have at TCM, and it's really good. If you want to learn how to both hack but also defend, of course, Active Directory, which is really important for both sides of the coin, both blue team and red team. And so I thought I would plug that. The link should be going around in chat if you do have any of that training budget to go around at the beginning of the year. I think this would be a great place to use it again if you are interested in that kind of thing. And also if you're going for the PNPT as well, it's a good way to set you up for the AD section of that exam as well. Alex, you're late. Yeah, just barely a few minutes late. What are essential tools every blue teamer should master? That's a good question, because I put out a blog post about that the other week, actually, on some of the top tools for a SOC analyst kind of thing, which blends nicely into blue team because there's a lot of overlap between different positions. But I like to think of it as not so much the tools, but like the sort of evidence realms or the evidence sources that you're using these tools to work with, right? So, I could list out things like, oh, you should learn Wireshark for network traffic analysis. You should learn TCP dump to collect network traffic. You should learn a SIM and then sort of recommend a specific SIM. But all of that is not really as relevant. More so what you should be focused on is these sort of different evidence realms. And I think I talked about that in the blog post, like where are the actual artifacts or where are the actual things that you're analyzing or collecting coming from, right? Is it disk-based evidence, right? Are you working with event logs or any kind of forensic artifacts on an endpoint, right? Or is it network traffic based, right? And then maybe we're dealing with packet captures and learning how to both analyze and capture those, but also work with flow data as well. So things like Zeek or Bro, right? And so it's hard to suggest specific tools because, again, tools often change. But these sort of evidence realms I like to think about this kind of thing is like, again, you want to think about network traffic related tools, endpoint related tools as well, right? So things like event logs, but also like learning how the underlying operating systems work, things like processes, network connections from the endpoint, right? Even things on Windows like the registry services, that kind of thing. And then also, working with a SIM, obviously, to sort of centralize and collect all of that stuff from all of your different endpoints and sensors, but also threat intelligence related artifacts as well, but also threat intelligence related tools and different open source tools like, even just things like performing whois lookups or using VirusTotal to sort of, get reputational database information as well. And so it is a pretty wide range. Specific tools come and go, though. So I always err on the side of that. What are your recommendations to get into cyber forensics? I would start with a good course that sort of introduces you to the actual forensic artifacts that you're going to be dealing with primarily throughout, your specialized role. On TCM, we have a good Windows forensics course. I know SANS has some excellent courses, but of course they can be pretty expensive. 13 Cubed as well really dives into again, these different artifacts, not only on Windows, but also Mac systems and Linux operating systems as well. And he also has a ton of free content on YouTube. So if you just look up 13 Cubed, you'll learn a lot about, again, different forensic artifacts and how to work with them with different tools, how to collect, but also analyze, things like images or memory dumps, that kind of thing. But it is a pretty big field. It is pretty specialized. So again, if you don't have that foundation in, how operating systems work, how things like processes work, it might be a little bit hard to sort of grasp the whole forensic side, because a lot about forensics is you have intentional evidence, which is actually like evidence that is supposed to be used as forensic evidence, but oftentimes, especially on Windows systems, you're dealing with unintentional evidence where it's like things are creating artifacts on the system, but they're not intended to be used for forensic purposes, right? So, shim cache is a good example, more so for an application compatibility feature. It's not necessarily meant to be used by analysts, and so there's not a ton of documentation. It might be hard for you to sort of, again, get good documentation or find tools that can work with that. But I would start there, basically just looking at different forensic artifacts and how you can both collect and parse them and also analyze them and understand what they actually mean at sort of a core level. Because there's often a lot of caveats around, again, a lot of those unintentional artifacts on endpoints. Look at the arsenal for security and feel too much to learn. Do you learn a tool a week, or how do you do it? No, I don't learn a tool a week. I usually learn tools as they're sort of required or how they can sort of help me in a specific scenario. And I think the Sherlock we do today is going to be a good example of that, where it's there are going to be a ton of tools that can accomplish the same thing for you. It's just a matter of what you're more comfortable with, or if you use something before, you're more familiar with it, or again, it's kind of like learning a language, wherein once you sort of understand the source of what you're trying to analyze, or the actual like evidence source or what it's telling you, it becomes easier to sort of translate that among different aspects, if that makes sense. I hope I'm not talking too high level here, but or not making sense, but I kind of feel it's kind of like a language. Like if you understand one tool and you understand what the tool is actually doing, because at the end of the day, it's just interfacing with either the operating system or it's interfacing with logs or some sort of thing that you're doing. I can't speak as much on the sort of pen test side, but again, same kind of issue where you have a ton of tools that can do the same thing, right? Like NetExec, things like that. And at the end of the day, it's like you're trying to accomplish the same thing in some cases. So I wouldn't get overwhelmed with the amount of tools you're trying to learn at a single time. I would just sort of take it in strides. And as you need to expand your toolkit, that's when you can start integrating new tools into your workflow. Is there a proposed date for the next SOC course or cert? Really enjoyed the PSAA. That's nice. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. We do have not a date, but we're hoping to release it in the second quarter of the year. So within a few months, I would say, for the sort of, we'll call it SOC 201 will be the course. It's going to have, I mentioned this before on stream, it's going to have a big threat hunting focus, a big incident response focus primarily, and also a threat simulation and even more deep dive into forensics, because I think that's a super important aspect. To really understand some of the more advanced attacks and how to detect them and different hardening around them as well. So I'm excited for the next SOC course. I think it's going to be a big step up from 101, which is really sort of, hand-holding and kind of guiding you through the different aspects and different functions of SOC, right? But 201 is where we really are going to expand our sort of not only tool set or toolkit, but also just like mentally, like our sort of cognitive ability to perform investigations and also use tools. Oh, good question. What are some underrated skills that people jumping into learning about cyber miss out on learning? I would say, and I think about this a lot, and I get frustrated a lot. I would say the biggest thing is just learning how to troubleshoot, and it's not a cybersecurity specific skill, right? It's not something specific to our industry, but anything related to IT. I mean, I guess you could say any job in general that, especially ones that sort of interface with a computer, which is pretty much every job these days. But just learning how to actually troubleshoot. If you get an error message, if you're trying to run a Python tool, it's going to tell you more or less what the issue is in the error message, right? And I think a lot of people shy away from doing that kind of like very basic research, right? I think they a lot of times I find people will run into an error message and then immediately ask for help and that kind of thing, and not take any initiative to understand what the error is telling you, because often the answer is right there, right? Or it's a quick Google search away, because rarely are you the only one that's ever had a specific issue, right? Especially if you're running a known tool. And so, again, I would say just learning how to take the output of an error you're getting, put it into Google, and then, even if you have to go on page 2 of Google, maybe a Stack Overflow article or a Reddit article to figure out what the issue is and how to understand, because it's going to take you so much farther than just running to the next person to ask for help. And not only for a sort of self-study perspective, but also on the job as well, right? I've worked with people who don't know how to do that thing in the workplace, and it wastes a lot of time, and it's not very efficient if someone always has to ask for help every time they get stuck. I think there's a lot of merit in learning how to diagnose things and troubleshoot things yourself. If you work in help desk, that's basically your job, right? But again, if you work in any kind of security function, being able to be self-sufficient like that is going to take you really far and kind of separate you out from someone who struggles sort of at the core. Is it possible to break into a SOC without a degree? Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people have done it. I have a degree, but not in anything related to cybersecurity. And I was able to do it, right? I didn't even have the Security Plus when I got my first kind of role. And so, but I can't really speak to everyone. And I know the job market is a lot harder now, and a lot more competitive, especially than when I was starting out. So it's hard for me to speak in general like that, but I definitely think it is still possible. But obviously, due to the amount of people and the amount of sort of saturation, especially in the job market these days for these entry level roles, it becomes harder to sort of stick out, right? Some good questions today. I'm transitioning into cybersecurity and I don't have any experience. Can you recommend any projects for an aspiring SOC analyst? Yeah. I've mentioned this before on stream too. Look up My Defer on YouTube. He has a ton of videos on different projects related to exactly what you're describing, these sort of tier 1 or entry level SOC roles. And these projects are really interesting because you're doing things that sort of a security engineer might do as well later on in your career, where you're sort of interfacing between different tools or different solutions to bring data from one sort of area over to another and sort of make correlations in that way. But even just like standing up something like Splunk and then deploying the Splunk forwarder and then running some basic things that to cause detections. You could run something like Atomic Red Team, for example, and sort of simulate attacks. You can download attack or like event samples from different attacks, which we might look at later today as well, and start to analyze those using different tools. So there's a lot of like free resources out there that you can use. There's a lot of free sort of repositories for different samples that you can download for network traffic analysis, or again, event log analysis, even like phishing analysis as well. And so, but if you want sort of like a walkthrough kind of thing, My Defer has some great lessons on that on YouTube. And of course, if you want to take the SOC 101 course, we walk through a ton of project-based stuff as well, working with different tools. The lights are nice on the back. Yeah, thank you. Trying to figure out a good way to make this backdrop more interesting, and I have some animated lights back there to hopefully bring some more intrigue into the background. I can't really speak on the SC200 or the Microsoft related certs. I have the AZ500 specifically for Azure, the security engineer one, but anything helps really. If you have Sec Plus, that's going to really be a good baseline foundation for you. You might want to consider looking for something more specific to a SOC role. I actually don't know off the top of my head what the SC200 one is, if it's just sort of a basic Microsoft-oriented security cert, or if it's specific to SOC analysts. I'm not sure. But I haven't been really on the Microsoft train in a while, other than having to renew my my Azure certs every year. Is there any plan to add more tools and chapters to SOC 101, or is the focus on delivering 201? Well, the focus right now is to get 201 out into the world. And then I highly doubt there's going to be a 301, right? We'll probably do more specific courses after that for specialized roles. And so at that point, I'd like to sort of focus on sort of maintenance between those two courses and really making sure they're up to date and, introducing new tools as we need to. And so I would say after the SOC 201, it's more so going to be a push into making sure we sort of maintain those two courses and make them the best they can be. And with that will probably mean new challenges, new tools, or new sections. Although I need to be careful and make sure the SOC 101 does not end up to be too long. I think it's at like 35 hours right now. And so unless we want 100-hour courses, which, hey, I'm sure people would love, we'll probably have to trim some parts and sort of replace them, that kind of thing. But yeah. What are your hobbies? Good question. I think it's important to have hobbies outside of anything related to work, right? I sit at my desk a lot of the day for often a long time, many hours, and so I need to go out and touch grass, right? So I work out a lot. I play music. I played guitar, piano, and drums for like over a decade now, a long time. I played in multiple bands over the years. Also music production. So I still work with some bands from the sort of college days that are still making music, and I often help out with production on their end, or audio engineering and stuff like that. So those are my main hobbies, I would say. The summer's nice. I can do more calisthenics. I want to get into rock climbing next summer because I think that's the sort of physicality I'm lacking that I can't always get using calisthenics, although I do have some nice sort of outdoor gyms around me for the summer. It's not as nice being locked in a basement a basement gym all winter when it's dark all the time. I know, right? What even is grass? Actually, that's a good point. I'm covered in inches of snow right now, so I'm not actually touching grass. Andrew, I highlighted the wrong one. No, I'm not shredded. Trying to. I was on a bulk for about over 6 months now. Not the best bulk, so I need to trim up for summer, definitely. Especially if I want to get back into calisthenics. Yes, that's a good comment right there. My DFIR should be on a live stream pretty soon. I'm hoping everything works out and we can get him on for a nice little Q&A and hear more about his side of things. He just reached 50K subscribers, which is awesome. I saw that this morning, and so I'm excited to have him on. We can have a blue team focused AMA. All right, because I'm just going to keep talking, let's switch over and start the challenge for the day, because could be kind of a lengthy one. Hopefully not. But let me switch this over. We talked about that. Let's head over to HackTheBox. We're going to do a Sherlock this time. There's some cool little challenges on HackTheBox. Some of these Sherlocks, which are sort of the investigation side of HackTheBox, right? You have the sort of boot to root machines that everyone's used to doing. Alex does a lot of them. But they also have Sherlocks, which are sort of like blue team focused, investigation, DFIR kind of things. And so we'll start with this one. I don't think I've done a HackTheBox machine before on stream, especially a blue team one. So I want to start off with this one I found. It's a retired machine, so I have to make sure they're retired, but also I like the free tier as well, because I personally don't have a subscription, and I know many people might not. So if you want to follow along, make sure they're free ones. And so this is a free retired machine called Logjammer that just looked interesting to me based on the sort of scenario here. And we can jump in a moment. So we don't actually need to spin up any machines for this, right? They sort of give us the task files that we're going to, work with here. And if we look at the scenario in this case, we've sort of been presented with an opportunity to work as a junior digital forensics and incident response consultant for a big consultancy. So what's the goal here? So we have this company would like to gauge our Windows event log analysis knowledge, which is very important. Again, I was talking earlier about evidence sources and sort of the evidence realms where information likes to live. That's useful during an investigation. Windows event logs are a very important one. And so we believe the cyber user logged into his computer and may have taken malicious actions. Interesting. So maybe we have some sort of insider threat scenario, or maybe they were compromised in some way and it's not actually the cyber user. So our goal here is to analyze the given event logs and report back on all of these questions that we have. So I've already downloaded the task files here and unzipped them using the HackTheBox password. I just like to make sure I already have them before I start the stream, just in case my browser decides not to work or something. And so I have the Logjammer folder here. And inside of this, we have a number of different, looks like, yeah, quite a few, 5 different EVTX or event log files, right? And so what we could do, again, I'm on Ubuntu here, but if we were on Windows, we could sort of open these up into the Windows Event Viewer, right? And then we could sort of open these up as save logs and start going through them. We can do things like filtering. We can do things like searching. But I hate the Windows Event Viewer. I think it's one of the worst sort of management consoles in Windows. The user interface is terrible. You can't zoom in. It's hard to read things. And also just being able to filter and search for things is such a pain. And so I don't want to use these sort of Windows native tooling to do this. I don't want to use things like EVTX-util or EVT-util, right? What I do want to use, though, because we have a number of different event logs, right? We would have to do these one by one, typically. I want to use a tool called Chainsaw to do this. And as the name suggests, it will allow us to sort of cut up and slice through these event logs and pull back specifically what we need. And I thought this would be a good use case for, understanding an event source and then figuring out what tools we can use to assist us during the sort of parsing and analysis stage, right? We already have the collection in place, right? We sort of have these logs on our system. Now it's more so, how do we actually parse through these? How do we manipulate them? How do we pull back specifically what we want? And so with that, there's other tools as well, right? I thought about using Deep Blue CLI. Let me look that up. Again, if you're dealing with sort of Windows event logs, this is another useful tool, more so for threat hunting in this case. So, which we can also do with Chainsaw, which maybe we'll get into. But again, it's a very powerful PowerShell module that we can use for threat hunting inside of Windows event logs, which would be, in my opinion, perfect for this scenario as well. But Chainsaw is also a good tool that I want to check out. And so you can see here, rapidly search and hunt through Windows forensic artifacts. So again, it provides us this ability to sort of search through event logs. We can look for specific keywords. We can, focus on filter through event IDs. We can even load in Sigma detection rules and sort of do that sort of threat hunting aspect as well, right? And so this is the tool that I want to use, especially because we have, 5 or so event logs to go through. I don't want to just go through them one by one. I want to search through everything we have, right? Because if I open up the folder, it looks like we have, these security event logs, which is, pretty normal, used to dealing with system event logs. We also have some application-specific event logs as well, right? So we have Windows firewall logs, Defender, and PowerShell operational logs, right? So there's a ton we could be getting ourselves into. And so if you want to download Chainsaw, you can just go under releases here. You can compile it if you want, but you can just go under releases and sort of download the one for your operating system. And so in this case, I already have that. I have it extracted. I'll just keep the repository up, might come in handy. And let me hop into my folder where I have Chainsaw just sort of in its own folder. It comes with, again, some event attack samples if you want to test out. Comes with some sample rules, some Sigma rules as well. But we just have the binary here that I'm going to be using to sort of, as the name suggests, cut through and carve out information from this event file to hopefully answer those questions. So what I can do to make sure it's working, I can just call Chainsaw, and then I think tac h will be the help. Yeah, there we go. So again, we can do different commands here, right? We can dump artifacts. We can hunt for specific artifacts, right? We could use those sort of detection rules, a bunch of different things. But I think we'll primarily use search here to sort of, search through our list of event sources. Am I a pen tester? No, not really. More so on the blue team side. Digital forensics, incident response, SOC analyst, right? That's sort of my thing. Although I do have a bit of a pen testing background, I've never actually had a pen testing role. It's never been more so my focus or interest. All right, so let's do this. Right, we have some examples here. So again, this is going to come in handy. You can see we can use this T parameter here to what looks like filter out for a specific event ID. We can search for specific names or keywords, right? And I think this is case insensitive. Well, we can pull that up when we need it, but yeah, so we can search for different things. We can use regular expressions, I think, too. So it's very powerful. So let's figure out what our first question here is. When did the cyber junkie user first successfully log into his computer? Okay, so in this case, I'm immediately thinking of 4624 event logs, right? So if I search for Windows event 4624, we can see this relates to when an account was successfully logged on, right? So this is a security event log, a very common one, right? So you should typically remember this ID if you're dealing with this kind of thing, right? But we could also just look up, probably Windows logon event code, and we'll get the same thing, right? There we go, 4624. And so that's what I'm going to filter on. And we could just target these security event logs because pretty sure that's the only place or the only source that we'll pull those from. But again, it's just as easy for us to work with the entire set of logs that we got. And so we can also filter based on this user as well, right? So let's try to figure out how we can do that and figure out when the first successful login occurred. So let me clear this out. And what we can do, again, is call chainsaw. I'm going to run the search. Let me just run the help again. We can run the search command, right, to sort of search through those artifacts. So I'll just call chainsaw search. And now we can kind of start using our different filters, right? And so what I'm going to do is just actually copy this example one here, which seems to be filtering on event code 4104. And we can just change that to search for 4624, right? So just sort of manipulating that example there to work for our use case. And the syntax is a little interesting. You can see here, we have to sort of have a space here and then an equal sign after this kind of colon here. So just watch for the syntax when you use this tool. And then we can also use, actually, I think I can run the help page specifically for the search parameter. Yeah, so we have the E option here to use regex, right? So we can use a string or regular expressions as a pattern to search for. Yeah, so like I was saying, ignore case. So that's going to be useful for us. So I think that's all you really need here. So I'm going to call that E sort of pattern matching argument. And then I'm going to search for the user's name, which was Cyber Junkie, right? Just so we can pull back only those specific logs. I don't know if it needs to be in quotes. I guess not. The example didn't. And then I'll set it to not case sensitive in case, maybe the C is capital, the J is capital. Doesn't really matter in that case. And then let's see what we get. Found 0 hits, it looks like. All right. Oh, I know why. I didn't point it to anything. So how do we do that? I think it's just sort of after the search. Yeah, the path. So let me specify. Where is that? Where does that live? Under Logjammer, event logs. I think it's in this folder. There we go. So if I try that, there we go. So now we found 4 hits. Cool. So this is sort of how they represent the different events, right? So they're sort of separated by these 3 dashes here. And we sort of have these like field and value pairs, right? That sort of map to the specific event. And so in this case, we have under event system, we have things like, oh, there we go, time created, right? So we have the system time attribute here, which relates to the specific time this event source was created. We should be able to find things like process ID, right? So relating to was actually run. We can see here the target username of Cyber Junkie. So that's how we're sort of getting our match using that keyword search. And so this is a login event, right? We can see all of the information around it, but we do have 4. So if I just want to pull back the first one, I think I can change the format of how I want to pull these back to, I thought there was a JSON. Yeah, right here. Print the output in JSON format. Cool. That's a lot easier to work with, in my opinion, than these sort of default output we're getting here. So if I do that, well, it's kind of a mess, but fortunately we can pipe this over to something like JQ. There we go. And that'll clean that right up. It'll syntax highlight it for us, make it look very nice. And now we can sort of use and work with this JSON that we've generated here of these different event logs, right? Each event is kind of its own object within, this sort of array here. And we want to find the first login event, right? And I think they're sort of in ascending or descending order. I don't know the correct thing. It's in chronological order, right? So 0, like the first index, would probably be the most recent one. So that's probably what we want to grab. So no, let's not open up Sublime Text. I don't need you. Let's go back to the terminal and let's, I might need to Google the syntax for JQ because it's been a while since I've used it. But basically, we can sort of add in a parameter of what we want to pull back, right, within a string. So I think if I just do this, no, we're not getting anything. Oh, dot. Yeah, so there we go. So that's going to basically do nothing different, right? It's still going to pull back everything. But now we can sort of specify what index we want to pull back. And so if I do a dot with the sort of 0 place in the index, that should just pull back a single event. Yep. And I can also, I think, clean up the output here from Chainsaw with just the TAC-Q option there. We won't get some of that header information, right? So there we go. We're just pulling back a single object now, it looks like. And specifically, again, we're looking for this system time field. And I think this should be the most recent one, because if I scroll up to earlier, we were getting a different date, which was after this somewhere. Yeah, so 38, this one was 37 as the first one. Yeah, so this has to be the answer, I think. Because it was, again, the first login event with that CyberJunkie user in our logs relates to this timestamp. I think we could also just pull back that specific one, again, using the sort of JSON syntax here, which is really easy to work with, honestly. So we just need to figure out what we want to pull back. So in this case, the event object. Under that, it looks like we have the system object. And specifically, we want the time created _ attributes object, specifically this field. Okay, so that's a little much. So we can do event, system, and then what is it? Time created. I'm just going to copy this. Again, I'm just being super verbose here. We don't actually need to extract this out specifically, but just so we know how to do it. System time, I believe it's the field. Yes, there we go. So now we're just pulling back that single field, right, with our answer. So copy that, head over to HackTheBox. Wants it in a specific format. Is that the same format we have? No. Okay, so you need to change this. Oh, that's annoying. So day 27, I think. 27/03/2023. And then the time with a space, I think. What was it? 14:37:09. Just 1 second, so I can probably leave out the milliseconds. There we go. All right. Oh, that took a little bit. The user tampered with firewall settings on the system. Analyze the firewall event logs to find out the name of the firewall rule added. Okay, and we did see there were firewall logs sort of in our directory here, right? Whoops, if I do an ls for, where is it? Logjammer, event logs. Yeah, so we do have Windows firewall-firewall.evtx as sort of its own log source here that we can work with. And so what we could do, analyze the user tampered with firewall settings on the system. Okay, so let's figure out what event code we might be looking for here, right? Because I actually don't know off the top of my head for Windows firewall event IDs. So I'll just Google Windows firewall event IDs. Yes, this is a pretty common reference here for different Windows events, specifically that you might want to monitor. And it is a big list. So if I search for firewall, for example, we have some here around the firewall service. But what about modifications to rules, right? Or the user tampered with firewall settings. And so it might not be a rule. I guess it could be any of these. Exceptions list could be this, right? Or this, a change has been made, yeah, to the firewall exception list. Let's try that. 4946. Yep. So I guess we can kind of run a similar thing here that we just did, but I can clean this up. We don't need to use JQ filters yet. I want to grab the event ID. This time we can do 4946. We can take out our search here for Cyber Junkie. And we get nothing. Okay. What about 4947? Change has been made to the exception list. Nope, still nothing. What if... Let's see if there's any more. There's actually a few matches here. I don't really want to go through them all. What we could do is probably just search for the word firewall. Maybe that's what I'll do. All right, so that's not working out for us, the sort of event ID here. Let's try, what is it, E, and then we can put firewall. Whoops, typo. Oh, and we need to take out the T parameter, because again, we're not doing that. There we go. All right, so it looks like you just get one result. Interesting, yeah. So we do have this source here for the Windows firewall. Oh, maybe we want... Oh, there we go. Now we're getting more. Okay. So, of course, the case there, the ignore case, is important to add. And that's a mess. Let's pipe it over to JQ again. I just like working with JSON. It's a lot easier to work with. And it looks a lot better when we can format it with something like the JQ command, right? And look at that. Already I see a potential rule here that was created. Metasploit C2 bypass out of this list of events that we returned. I would say that's probably what we're looking for here. But, you know, more methodically, how could we have solved that? I don't like just randomly stumbling across the answer. I like to figure out how we could kind of arrive at this conclusion more efficiently, right? So what we could do is figure out what event ID that was. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, event ID of 2004. Is there another reference here to firewall event logs? Yeah, 2004. A rule has been added to the Windows firewall exception list. Okay. So that's a different event ID than we were looking at from Microsoft. Maybe this is like the application-specific event ID, and what we were looking at before was maybe related to just the service itself. That could be it. But I want to find a better reference to that. I guess, yeah, this is our reference. Okay. So that's how we could have done it, I guess, is just search specifically for that 2004 event ID. If we had a better resource to go off of, in this case, this knowledge base here, eventtracker.com, seems to have the answer there. And so I'm going to go with this, Metasploit C2 bypass, because that is a little suspicious, right? What we could also do is sort of just look at the names here. Maybe if we want to list out all of the different firewall-related logs and just figure out what the rule name was in this case, right? Or maybe the... maybe the rule name. Or what we could do is the event ID as well to figure out what different events we're dealing with if we just search for firewall. And so to do that, we could probably just use JQ again, and then pull back everything like I did before with just the dot and then the square brackets there. And we're going to get basically the same results. But we could now just sort of grab that event system ID, right? So what we could do is, I think it's event.system event ID. Does that work? No, that does not work. Did I type it wrong? There we go. Yeah. So now we're pulling back all of the different event codes from that giant list. And again, if you've ever seen me work with the terminal before, I like to cut these up in sort of take out the duplicates. So we can just sort them. We can run unique and count the results. And then we can sort that once again based on their results in the list. So now we're really cutting down to see what are the unique event IDs that we're working with here, right? And so you can see we have a ton of 2004s, which we discovered was related to a rule being added to the exception list, right? So that might be useful to us. 315 as well. So what is 2006? Let's search 2006. Well, maybe I'll just Google Windows Firewall Event 2006. There you go. So when a rule was deleted in the exception list. Okay. In this case, we want to add, or we want to look for when I guess a rule was created. And the question is the name of the firewall rule. And so we figured that out, but I just want to be more verbose here and sort of arrive to that conclusion more naturally, right? And so what we've done is identify, hey, maybe we're looking for this event ID of 2004. And so we can use our classic little search here and just change the event ID to 2004, right? That makes sense. I think everything else is fine as it is. And we're just going to pull back those specific events now. And now let's try to grab the names here and sort of do the same thing we just did, but just for the rule name. So in that case, I can pipe it over to JQ. We can grab everything again, right? A dot square bracket. And then we want to grab the event data rule name. Yeah. So event data rule name. There we go. Yeah. So now we're grabbing all the different names of the rules that were created in these logs, the firewall rules. And now we can pipe this again, same kind of thing. We can pipe it over to sort unique C, count the unique entries, and then we can sort it once again by that sort of numerical count value. In this case, we still have quite a few results, a lot of Microsoft ones. So let me pipe that again over to grep, tac V to ignore basically any of those Microsoft ones. There we go. And we still have a ton of other ones as well that make it a little difficult to search through. But so we have a firewall rule for the solitary game, Xbox, OneNote. So again, nothing too concerning that's jumping out to me here, except for, of course, Metasploit C2 bypass. And so again, that's another way we could have sort of enumerated all of those results and sort of started to filter out and dig through to figure out anything potentially interesting or anomalous, right? So again, typically in the real world, I don't think we're going to have a rule name this verbose for us, but in this case, it works, right? So that should be the name. There we go. What's the direction of the firewall rule? So let's try to grab just that specific one. So we can just take all of that out. Oh, you can't. Oh, that's a good point. You can't see the commands. Let me try to move myself somehow. Well, I'll just hide myself for now. All right. So let's go back here. And I don't think we need to grab everything now. I'm just looking for that specific one for the Metasploit bypass. There you go. So now we're getting all the information about that rule. And at the top here, where does it actually? Here we go. So 2004, the event ID. Yep, that's what we're looking for from the sort of source of the firewall rules. This specific system, the rule name, Metasploit C2 bypass. I want to figure out. Oh, there we go. So we have remote ports here, right? So what is the actual port that is being opened up on the system, right? So quad 4 is never a good sign. And no specific remote addresses either. But because it's sort of opened up remotely here, we also see direction here is set to 2. I imagine that means outgoing, right? Or egress kind of rule, right? And maybe 1 means incoming or ingress. So that's probably the answer there for this question. What is the direction of the sort of thing? So outgoing, or maybe needs to end in a D, so outbound, I assume. There we go. And so that's another interesting thing we could search for too, right? Like the remote port, and figure out maybe that's another way we can identify an anomaly, right? And so what I could do is run something similar to what I did before here. but instead of the rule name, I want to grab remote port, right? Null, is that the right name? Remote ports with an S. There we go, right? So now we're just pulling back the different rules that were created that open up specific ports, right? So in this case, it looks like we have, again, quad 4 opened up. That's a little bit anomalous. We could sort of figure out what, hey, what ports are these and what sort of services are they connected to, right? There's some default ones, even things like 443, right? And so, again, another way we could have potentially spotted that as well. There's many different ways you can do an investigation like this. The user changed audit policy. The user changed audit policy of this computer. Does that make sense grammatically? The user changed audit policy of the computer. What's the subcategory of this changed policy? Well, why don't we use the best tool ever, Google. Audit policy changed event ID. When system level audit policy is modified. Yeah, I guess that is grammatically correct. All right. Looks like we have the event ID in this case of 4719 for the system audit policy was changed. Okay, so this one should be more straightforward. So we can basically run the same thing. We don't need to cut anything up. Just change the event ID here to 4719. There you go. How many? Oh, just one result. So that, again, a lot easier. Question is, what's the subcategory of the changed policy? Is there a subcategory field here? Yep, subcategory ID. Not very useful. Subcategory GUID. Maybe we can search this string, see if it relates to anything. Yeah, so you have this page here. Looks like it maps the subcategory GUIDs. If I do a search for that, there you go. I have no idea what this is referring to, though. Okay, how the subcategory GUID values are used by the audit configuration client-side plugin. Subcategory field is used for reference only and is ignored when the advanced audit policy is applied. Okay, well, I guess Microsoft likes to do that sometimes. They just relate strings or specific GUIDs like this to actual values. Looks like it identifies other object access events. Or not. What is it asking? Ends in an S. Oh, they want the word events too. But only this is bolded. All right. The user CyberJunkie created a scheduled task. What is the name of this task? Well, again, same kind of methodology here, right? What is the, I don't know off the top of my head, so what is the scheduled task creation event ID? In this case, pretty quickly identify this, 4698 maybe. So let's try that, same kind of thing. Hopefully another easy answer. 4698. Looks like we have a few results. Let's see how many we have. So I'm just going to take out the quiet option here, and it's going to tell me, oh no, there's just one hit. Okay. Let me run that again then. Looked like there was multiple. Okay, yeah, just one. So, question is, what is the name of the task? Let's head back here. There should be a task name field somewhere. If this is actually relating to sort of a task creation event, and it's probably under task content, right? So if you ever use like scheduled tasks or chtasks.exe, that utility to actually create or modify tasks, you typically need to add the /tn for task name here, whether you're querying a task or creating a task. So I expect something in these results is going to tell us that. And it looks like it's in some sort of XML format. So let's copy this. And I'm going to head over to CyberChef to sort of make this easier to figure out, right? All right. Yes, again, it looks like we have XML. What I can do is sort of beautify, I'm sure. XML beautify, there we go. Zoom in a bit. Can we syntax highlight it? To XML? No, I guess not. I mean, kind of. It's just not very useful to us. But I just want to find the task name here, right? Which should be its own kind of object, I imagine. Date, author, description, URI. Where's the name? Oh, I guess it's this. HTTP-automation. Was there something else here? Oh yeah, task name. I didn't even need to do all that. HTTP automation. But I do want to figure out what the task is doing. So let me just submit this. You just drop your XML in Cato. Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. Yeah, so I want to figure out what that was actually doing. So again, we can see when it was created. We can see the author. So it looks like, again, that CyberJunkie user created it. Description was just set to practice. Okay. URI, I guess, refers to like where it's sort of stored, or in this case, we can sort of infer the name of the task through that field as well. Calendar trigger, right? So we can see when it's actually going to run. It looks like days interval every 1 day. We can see things like the run level, right? So who it actually runs as. But what does it actually do? What does it run? There we go, under actions. Let me zoom in. So it looks like it's running a command to call automation-htb.ps1. So some sort of PowerShell script it's running. And it looks like it's providing some arguments with tag A, and then it's pointing to an email address or a user, I guess, user at a specific box. Maybe it's like using SSH or something to exfiltrate data. I'm not sure what this script is actually doing without getting our hands on it, but it's doing something on that interval, right? Okay. What's the full path of the file? Oh, we figured that out. Which the schedule for the task. What's the full path of the file which was scheduled for the task? Okay. Reading is hard. I think it's this, right? This is the file that's being run, this PowerShell script, and we might just need to clean up the formatting because it's sort of escaped with double slashes. There we go. What are the arguments? Figure that out as well, right? Just by looking at that sort of XML detail about the task content. So the arguments are, it's running tag A, the A argument, and pointing to this user for some reason. All right. Task 8, the antivirus running on the system identified a threat and performed actions on it. Which tool was identified as malware by the antivirus? Probably going to be looking at those firewall or defender logs now, right? If I go to, in this case, Logjammer, event logs, we do have Windows Defender operational logs. So that's probably what we're going to be looking at. But again, it's just as easy to point it to everything. But if we were getting a ton of results, we could sort of narrow it down. But the fact that we do have this means we should have Defender related logs, right? So again, it's asking kind of identified a threat and performed actions on it. And so let's, again, return to Google, Windows Defender identified threat event ID. Okay, here we go. Microsoft Defender, antivirus event IDs and their codes. Okay. Scan failed. Oh, event ID 1006. The anti-malware engine found malware or other potentially unwanted software. All right, so this could be what we're looking for. I have no idea what's going on. Me too sometimes. So in this case, we're sort of using, what is this? We're using these event logs that we've been provided to sort of trace back an attack on an endpoint. So in this case, it's asking us to identify, specifically using the Windows Defender event logs that we have access to, what sort of tool was identified as malware. And so what I'm trying to figure out is what event IDs might be useful to us. And so in this case, I just basically Googled for the Windows Defender event IDs, and I came across this one, which appears to relate to the anti-malware engine or Defender, I guess, finding malware or other potentially unwanted software. And so what I'm going to do is use Chainsaw, which I've been using to sort of cut through these events and pull back what I need and sort of filter them out. And I'm just going to plug in this event ID here in this command. So I can just pull back any of those events in our sort of list. And in doing that, it looks like we have nothing. All right. What else do we have? 1007. Oh, the anti-malware platform performed an action to protect your system from malware. Okay, maybe this is it. That sounds more in line with what the question is asking for anyways. Okay, let's try 1007. Still nothing. All right. Identified a threat and performed actions on it. I would think that would be it, right? Performed an action. 1008. Attempted to perform an action. No. Restored an item from quarantine. No. What if I search for action? Or yeah. Couldn't delete an item from quarantine. That's not useful. Deleted history of malware. That's not useful. I don't think it's listed here. Detected suspicious behavior. The anti-malware platform. Antivirus running on disk. I don't know. Detected malware or other potentially unwanted software. How is that different than the 1006 or whatever? I don't know. Let's try this. Okay, we have results for that. Detect malware or other potentially unwanted software. But it needs to perform actions on it, right? Well, let's see how many we got with that. So I'm going to take out the Q option, basically list out. Okay, 139 hits, which is not very useful. Oh, here we go. The anti-malware platform performed an action to protect your system from malware. This has to be it. Performed actions on it. This has to be it. Okay, 1117. Okay, let me try that. Do we still get... Okay, we have 71 hits. How can we narrow this down? So I don't just want to go through 79. It looks like I can see the answer here. But I want to figure out like how you can properly do this without just going through a giant list, right? We could search it based off of CyberJunkie, perhaps if the malware was identified from that user, right? So again, we did that earlier where we searched for a specific string. We could search something like a location like this or just the username. So that could be one way we do it. Or I think we can use timestamps. If I pull up the help option, we did have a timestamp field. The field that contains a timestamp. Is there... two? Okay, the timestamp to search up to. Yeah, but we need to search before a specific time. So what I'm thinking is we can filter out our results based on anything that happened after sort of this event timeline, right? Because this is when the user sort of first logged in. So we can basically ignore anything, if there is anything before that time. But I'm not seeing a way to do that. We can only search up to. Oh, here, from. Timestamp to search from. Okay. Let's try to do that then. So I want to, again, grab those 1117 event IDs, but I only want to search from, and it needs this specific format. Okay, what was that format? Because we had to modify it. So that won't work. I don't want to run that command again. Figure out what I ran. I guess we have to. Okay, let me go all the way back up to basically our first command that we ran. 4624. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Yeah, that's what we want. There you go. So I'm going to copy this as our timestamp. Thank you, bash history. And now, again, I'm going to run this. I'm going to set the from option here to this timestamp, maybe. Is that what it's looking for? Invalid value. Okay. Maybe it's the milliseconds again. There we go. No. The following required arguments were not provided. Timestamp. Okay. Timestamp. Okay. Oh, the field that contains the timestamp, which would be system time, right? But we need to do time created. Oh, I know. We need to use this format again, I believe. Event.system, time created, system time, I think. Let's grab that and put that as this. There we go. Yeah. That worked. Now we only have 2 hits. And that makes it a lot easier to pipe it out into JSON and then run JQ to look through both of these results, right? So event ID, yeah, there we go. But what was detected? There we go. Threat name, hack tool, Sharpound, some sort of Sharpound PowerShell script, I imagine. We have a link here to the tool and why it was detected. I actually didn't know the Defender event logs were this verbose. That's really useful, actually. The user in question was CyberJunkie. Source name, downloads, and attachments. There we go. Now we see the path to, Sharpound as a zip file here. We have the file name where it was saved. Excellent. So, what was the name of the tool? Sharpound. What is the full path of the malware which raised the alert? We can grab that from, I guess I mean the system path, which would be this. And then just clean that up with the backslashes. No, incorrect. Oh, one more. There we go. What action was taken by the antivirus? Imagine there's an action. Yep, action ID 2. What does that mean? Oh, action name, quarantine. Simple enough. Again, very verbose logs here, which I'm impressed with because, typically Microsoft logs are not the most useful. Okay, the user used PowerShell to execute commands. What command was executed by the user? Well, we saw that PowerShell script earlier. We also have Sharpound. But we also have event logs specifically for PowerShell, right? And typically with the PowerShell operational event logs, we can grab things like the script blocks or like the actual scripts or commands that were run kind of thing, I believe. And so we can probably target that and then just look for any kind of events or event ID related to the execution, which I imagine there is one. So let's return to Google and basically just search for, PowerShell event logs. No, we don't want get event log. That's how we can query them in PowerShell. But what are the event IDs? Oh, there we go. And specifically execution. Right. 400. 4104 script blocks execution. Yeah, I think that's it. Where's that listed from? Execution. Again, some of this stuff is not always documented, which is annoying. Like it's documented, but you have to like really hunt for it. Because I didn't see a Microsoft page come up for this. Maybe it's right here, actually. But do they have the event IDs? 4104? They don't. And so I don't know if there's like a Microsoft documentation specifically for these somewhere. I'm sure somewhere. But where was that 41 that I saw? 4688. Process execution events. Yeah, 4103. There we go. Event ID lookup. It's always on these like third-party sites that have this stuff documented, which is annoying. So event ID 4103, specifically for the PowerShell source. What is it? Command invocation. So I guess, yeah, this is whenever a script or something is executed. Let's try that, I guess. So we can run basically the same command we've been running. Actually, I'll keep the timestamp because that was useful to cut down on things that we don't need. And then I'll just change this to 4104. And again, we could just specifically target the PowerShell logs, but typically there's not too much overlap between event IDs and different sources. I mean, there can be, but in the case that we're dealing with, probably not. And in this case, we only have 3 hits. They're all seemingly from PowerShell. And so again, we don't have any overlap there to worry about. So we can just sort of go through. We just have 3 events to look at here. Script block text, get file hash. Okay, yeah, so automation, HackTheBox.ps1. So just getting the MD5 hash of that. I assume there's more commands. I'll copy that to be safe. Prompt. Okay, so I guess not. What was the first command then? Just a prompt. Yeah, so I guess that's it. For some reason, the attacker was getting the MD5 hash of the file they downloaded. I guess, yeah. I guess if they were downloading a tool, like some sort of hacking tool, they want to sort of verify the integrity, that everything captured over correctly, that maybe Defender didn't modify or change anything. They want to sort of grab the hash value to reference later, I guess, or to sort of check against something they have documented. Yeah, so I guess that's realistic in a way, if that's the answer. Nope, wrong answer. It's stupid backslashes again, I bet. There we go. Oh, so that's pretty much it. The last question is, we suspect the user deleted some event logs. Which event log was cleared? So again, this should be an easy one. 1102 is the event ID of that. Basically the event log cleared, or at least a very common one. But we get 0 hits. Is that right? 1102. Yeah, the audit log was cleared. Okay, so maybe that's a little bit more difficult. Yeah, we're just going to get 1102. Maybe the timestamp is not right, or maybe it happened before for some reason. Oh, we do have a hit. There we go. For an event log cleared. The question is, which event log file was cleared? In this case, I'm guessing the security event log. Microsoft Windows event log. I'm guessing the security events, because that is a security event ID or event code. No. .evtx. No. All right. I guess it won't be easy. Maybe we take this out. I'm just going to search for the word cleared then, because maybe there's an application-specific event. And again, the event code is not properly documented or not easily accessible unless we want to do a bunch of Googling. But what we can do is just, because again, we're using a tool like Chainsaw, we can just easily search for strings or patterns. So cleared, and then we want it to be case independent. There we go. We're getting some stuff now. Event log. Is that the one we just looked at? No. This is the firewall log. But where is it matching the word cleared? Grep cleared. Oh, log file cleared. Can I just not see where that is? Oh, is the name of the field or the key. Okay, so I'm assuming this is it then. If this was cleared, that's just a reference, I think. But what's the name of the log? I guess this, right? That's confusing, because it's not actually telling me anything. It's just we can kind of infer it was cleared based on, I guess, this field. What is the event ID? Event record ID 2186. No, event ID 104. What? Event ID 104. Firewall. Yeah, Windows event logs clear. Again, where is that documented other than these third-party sites? Yeah. Oh, so this is the source. But the file is the firewall log. I don't know. Let's try it. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, I don't know about that last question there, but the rest of it was pretty straightforward. Hopefully, I mean, I know it's a lot harder to sort of go through in sort of the command line like this, especially when you know uh, you're dealing with JSON, and although you can sort of get some syntax highlighting, it's not super clear. It's also kind of just boring to watch things in the command line. So unfortunately, I didn't have the proper way to graphically display that info. I think that'd be a cool tool. Maybe I'll write a tool that can do that. Take sort of that JSON output and make it look more, uh, visually pleasing and easier to sort of dig through. But that was it, pretty much. That wasn't too bad. Just the simple fact that we had a bunch of uh, event logs to go through, and then we sort of had to use different filters, use different queries to pull back what we wanted. And a lot of that was just research, right? It was looking up, hey, what is the event code for this specific event that they're describing, right? So hopefully that was not too bad to follow. There will be a VOD for the live stream if you need to go back and want to watch through it. But again, you could have solved that same challenge in many different ways, right? Like I mentioned, you could just open this up in Event Viewer, right, on Windows, and just painstakingly go through their GUI there and search for things and filter things as you need to. You could, again, probably use something like Deep Blue CLI, which is more of a threat hunting tool, though, so it might not be able to detect every single thing. But basically, our goal there was to sort of build out that attack timeline using the events and basically, again, trace what happened rather than just looking for or just hunting for specific suspicious things, which can be useful. They can really help prompt us build out that timeline. But in that case, we were sort of just walking through it step by step. Good question. Why didn't you use Splunk or Elk? Yeah, that's another thing you could do too. You just take those event logs, manually upload them or batch upload them into something like Splunk, and just search through it that way. That would be another way more visually easy way to go about it. But I really just want to use the chainsaw tool. It's very powerful, especially being a command line tool. Again, if we're in an incident response scenario, we don't have access to a GUI or we don't have access to a SIM that we can sort of upload these or forward these off to. In this case, we were handed these event log files, right? So we didn't really have that infrastructure set up, it looks like. So again, just being comfortable using different tools and using different methods to get the same answer is kind of the goal there. But yeah, I thought it'd be cool to use Chainsaw because, again, super powerful tool if you're dealing with any kind of Windows event log analysis. But with that, we can take some Q&A before we wrap up for the day. So let me hop back over to Restream. Thank you, MB99, for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Let's see what we have here. Is it still worth learning these things with AI evolution? Yes, of course. I mean, you can use AI to help you in many cases, right? Like for this example, like, if I didn't know the syntax for JQ, for example, or if I didn't know, the syntax for chainsaw off the top of my head, again, that's a very simple thing. You can ask an AI tool, hey, generate me the command to do this. But really anything when it comes to analysis like we're performing here and sort of correlating events, you cannot always trust AI to do that for you, right? There's a certain human element, there's a certain human level cognition there that needs to be done by a person with real thoughts and not just using a sort of knowledge base built up by AI, right? There's just some critical thinking that is never, in my opinion, going to be replaced by any kind of robot or machine, right? And so rather, I would sort of frame the context of that question in terms of how can AI help us be more efficient and more quick at our jobs, right? Because that's definitely a good use case. You should have something like ChatGPT or, whatever the new tools are now that I keep hearing about. But have that in your inventory and pull it out if you need it, right? It can really save time. It can save, it can just save a lot of manual effort. And that's really what AI at the end of the day should do for us. I don't think it's going to replace analysts, completely. I think it is going to just be another tool that we can use and another tool that you should be using if you haven't already to do certain things. which is worse to see port 4444 or 1337. Either way, I think you're dealing with super elite level hacker there, right? I think maybe quad 4 uh, would uh, would ease me a little bit, just because that's typically the default payload in something like Interpreter. So maybe we're not dealing with someone that cares about their OPSEC. Leet, for example, might just be someone who is super confident in their abilities, and they probably they probably already destroyed us. So yeah, either way. How many programming languages does Andrew know? I don't know. I mean, I'm really not an expert on any specific programming language. I kind of just, again, I just see them as tools in sort of an inventory. And if I don't know something, I don't know specific syntax, I can just look that up. Or again, AI is a useful tool to help out with a lot of that stuff, right? I learned a lot about Python that I didn't originally know about just by using ChatGPT. But the sort of caveat there is you need to know when it's telling you things that just don't make sense, or it's giving you output that in theory works, but is not the most ideal, or is not the most efficient, or won't scale well, right? So again, you need to have sort of a underlying foundational kind of understanding of a programming language before you start blindly relying on a tool like AI to help you write it. But I don't know, like just over experience, like I've just been more accustomed to using Python, or even just running Bash, sort of kung fu in the command line kind of thing, or PowerShell as well, right? But I don't think you need to be an expert on any kind of programming language to succeed or do well in investigations, right? It's just sort of a tool that we can use to help expedite, or help triage, or help understand things better, or automate things, right? I've just started teaching myself and looking towards red teaming. Is it worth doing the SOC level 1 training, etc.? If you mean on Try Hack Me, yeah, I think it would be useful. If you're focused on red teaming, it's going to give you a good sort of baseline on the blue team aspect sort of things, right? Because the SOC level 1 on Try Hack Me is just focused on, again, blue team related stuff, SOC analyst kind of oriented tasks and tools. And so again, it helps paint a bigger picture. But if you are focused again on red teaming, I always say this: like if that's more so your jam, then I would just focus on that, and you can always sort of fill out your uh, skills on sort of the red and blue side later on. But there's different methodologies, different ways to look at it. Are you going to be making a video doing an investigation using Lima Charlie? That's a good question. Yeah, I think I would like to. In the SOC 101 course, we sort of use Lima Charlie. We deploy an agent and sort of treat it as an EDR tool, which is really powerful. And we get to do some investigations around that and write rules and detections. I think that would be a good video as well, sort of on the channel to do, assuming that you can still get a Lima Charlie free license. I don't think they made any changes. So yeah, I would love to do that. I really like that section of the course, because it really sort of ties in all of the endpoint related artifacts and endpoint related incident response stuff that we dealt with all throughout that section, and really ties it up nicely with a enterprise grade EDR solution, which is nice and kind of rare to use, or rare to get your hands on, unless you have a lot of money to pay for a CrowdStrike license or something, right? But Lima Charlie is super powerful. It gives you a ton of functionality, and the free tier is just perfect for learning that kind of thing. Ooh, a super chat. For blue teaming, is EDR enough of an alternative to Sysmon, or both need to be together? It's a good question. I would personally say you need both. EDR is going to be really good at sort of giving you that telemetry in a way, and also, of course, being able to, automate actions and take actual response. You're never going to be able to replace that with something like Sysmon, right? Sysmon will give you really good visibility, but it's not going to really ever take action, right? And on the other side of that, you can get some pretty good visibility into endpoint telemetry and different actions that are occurring on endpoints from an EDR. I think these sort of verbosity and correlations sort of features you get from Sysmon make it super useful to sort of forward that off to a SIM and sort of perform hunts and different searches across your organization. The downside of that is, again, you're sort of dealing with two different agents there if you want to run both an EDR and Sysmon. And so if you did have to pick, I would most likely go with an EDR, because again, you get that response effort and also a ton of different features and integrations. Sysmon is just kind of a very nice addition if you're looking for more visibility on endpoint logs. And so I think the two go hand in hand together really well, and they really give you an analyst a lot more avenues and different evidence realms to sort of go off of during investigations. But again, if you had to choose one, go with the EDR to make sure your sort of bases are covered. I'm late to the stream. Are you ending soon? Yeah, we're pretty much wrapping up shortly. We're just doing a short Q&A after the Hack the Box room that we did. But you can watch the after this, you can watch sort of the replay of the live. So yeah, thanks for joining. But you did miss the actual box that we did, unfortunately. But you can sort of watch it back, right? Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad you joined us and found value from it. Am I the founder of TCM? No, I'm not. That would be Heath, who is not here today on stream, but he does pop around every once in a while. So you can probably catch him on one of these streams. Maybe not for the next week or so, just because we have some exciting things planned and some guests that are coming on, which I'm excited about. But yeah, that would be Heath, sort of the owner and original channel member here. Can we have access to some lab in free course for training at TCM? We don't have embedded labs in the courses, but oftentimes, even things like our practical help desk, which is our free course, walks you through sort of building out that lab environment on your own system. Because again, learning how to do that thing is equally important, in my opinion, to just clicking play on a box and having it spin up for you. I know there's resource constraints and stuff, so I think maybe in the future we might have something like that. But yeah. Okay, I didn't know we were spoiling the guests, but yeah, some very exciting folks that are going to be coming on in the coming weeks on our live streams here. So I'm super excited about that. I think Andrew Bellini is going to be on next week with Matt Brown. All right, everyone. I think I might wrap it up for the day, just at the hour and a half mark here, which is, I think, a nice place to end. I'm glad we got through that challenge. It didn't take us too long, and we got to have time for some QA before and after. And so with that, yeah, thank you again, everyone, for stopping by. Thank you for all the engagement and help. And I hope you enjoyed the box we did today. I hope to do some more Sherlock Blue Team-esque things on Hack the Box later on, because I do actually like the quality of investigations you get from Hack the Box compared to some other sources as well. So I did like that event log when we did. Hopefully we can do some more maybe malware analysis and different forensic related stuff as well. It just depends on what is retired and what is typically free on the platform to do. So thank you, everyone. Be sure to tune in next week, where again we're going to have some very exciting IoT related stuff as well next week. So catch you guys later. Have a great rest of your week.